We had a really amazing connection, an incredible connection between the two of us, John Bonham and I. There's just no doubt about that.
John Bonham wasn't just Led Zeppelin's drummer. He was the heartbeat of the band. And when he died at just 32 years old, Jimmy Page didn't simply lose a bandmate. He lost a close friend and the one musician who seemed to understand his guitar without a word. But what happened next revealed just how deep that loss really went, and why Led Zeppelin could never truly be the same again.
I know that John Bonham loved Led Zeppelin music and played it at home nearly most of the time. So
Jimmy Page has rarely opened up completely about that painful moment, but the loss of John Bonham clearly changed everything. Bonham wasn't simply Led Zeppelin's drummer. He was the engine, the heartbeat, and the raw power pushing their music forward. When he was gone, the band didn't just lose one member. They lost a huge part of what made them Led Zeppelin. On September 25, 1980, John Bonham died at only 32 years old. The news traveled quickly, but the shock was harder to process.
We'll get another drummer. That never crossed your minds, huh?
No, it wasn't.
Jimmy Page suddenly faced a future that looked nothing like the one they had planned. Led Zeppelin had touring ambitions, new music still waiting to be created, and a legacy that was getting bigger by the year. But without Bonham behind the drums, moving forward didn't feel right. Some people wondered whether Led Zeppelin would simply find another drummer. Plenty of bands had replaced members before and kept moving.
So we could say to another drummer, well, can you learn this bit and learn that? But it just wouldn't work, you know?
But Page understood the problem immediately. Bonham wasn't someone you could just swap out. His timing, power, feel, and unpredictable groove were deeply connected to Led Zeppelin's identity. The loss also cast a darker shadow over Page's musical world, with familiar studios, stages, riffs, and memories now tied to the friend he had lost. And underneath all of that pain was a brutal reality. Led Zeppelin, as they knew it, could not simply carry on.
Just how forward-thinking he was with the drums, apart from the fact that he made drums sound like drums as well.
Jimmy Page and John Bonham had become far more than musicians sharing a stage. Their friendship was built through music, exhausting tours, long nights, and years of chasing the same dream. From Led Zeppelin's earliest rehearsals, Page could tell Bonham had something different. He didn't merely keep time, he controlled it. Every drum hit carried confidence, muscle, and emotion. Bonham also trusted Page's musical instincts. When Page explored unusual tunings, stretched solos, or dropped into crushing riffs, Bonham could lock in with him almost instantly. Their musical chemistry sometimes seemed almost telepathic. Page has described how closely Bonham could follow what he was doing on guitar, reacting to tiny changes and turning them into something huge. That kind of connection is rare, even among legendary musicians. Away from the stage, they also shared laughs, drinks, road stories, and conversations about life, family, and whatever might come after music. Bonham had a loud, wild personality, while Page was often more reserved and intensely focused. Somehow, those opposite energies clicked. Where one left space, the other knew exactly how to fill it. When Bonham struggled with fame and alcohol, Page was deeply concerned. He could see that things were getting rough, but like many musicians caught inside the madness of that era, there was a belief that somehow the music would keep everything together. It didn't. The bigger Led Zeppelin became, the heavier the pressure grew, and life behind the scenes wasn't nearly as glamorous as it looked from the outside. After Bonham's death, Page reportedly wrestled with painful questions. Could anything have been done differently? Could the band have slowed down, stepped away, or encouraged Bonham to get more help? Those thoughts were difficult to escape. Losing Bonham wasn't simply about losing an incredible drummer. Page had lost a close friend and a musician who could understand his ideas without needing a long explanation. That missing connection changed everything. Each time Page picked up a guitar, there was no Bonham waiting behind the kit to answer the riff with one of those massive drum patterns. The musical conversation they'd built over years was suddenly gone. The day John Bonham died had started like another day in Led Zeppelin's world. The band was rehearsing and preparing for an American tour, ready to get back on the road. Nobody expected that their plans were about to collapse. After a period of heavy drinking, Bonham was later found unresponsive. The news hit the band like a wrecking ball.
And he played them. He's the loudest drummer that I've ever played with.
For Page, accepting that Bonham was really gone was devastating. Bonham had lived through plenty of wild moments before. He seemed powerful, fearless, loud, and larger than life. But this time was different. Page pulled away as he processed the loss, and even music carried painful memories. The same songs that had once made them feel unstoppable now carried Bonham's unmistakable presence in every beat. There was nowhere inside Led Zeppelin's music where his absence couldn't be felt. Then came the decision that stunned fans around the world. Within months, Led Zeppelin announced that they could not continue as they had before. There would be no permanent replacement pretending to recreate Bonham's place in the band, and no quick attempt to push forward like nothing had happened. For Page, Plant, and Jones, the message was clear. What the four of them had built together depended on all four being there.
It wasn't all this arm smashing, it was just his riffs. And that really is quite something.
Continuing Led Zeppelin without Bonham felt almost like a betrayal. Zeppelin wasn't some logo or brand that could survive endless replacements. It was four specific musicians creating something explosive together. Take one of those four pieces away, and the entire chemistry changed. Fans wanted reunions, another drummer, another tour, another shot at seeing the machine roar again. Page understood that hunger, but recreating the original magic was never going to be simple. Bonham's death didn't only bring Led Zeppelin's original run to an end. It also began a difficult new chapter for Jimmy Page. After the band split, Page tried moving forward through solo work, collaborations, soundtracks, and new musical experiments. The creative fire hadn't disappeared, but it clearly burned in a different way. Studios could bring back memories of the years he'd spent working alongside Bonham. Those enormous drums that once rattled rooms were now missing. Page had to discover how to create without the musician who had instinctively answered his guitar for so many years. That wasn't just a technical change. It completely altered the musical dynamic he'd grown used to. Page had built a reputation as a guitarist and producer with bold instincts, but losing Bonham forced him into unfamiliar territory. Ideas that might once have exploded into life with Bonham behind the kit now had to find a different direction. The old musical formula couldn't simply be copied with somebody else sitting behind the drums. Yet music also offered Page a powerful connection to the past. Playing those classic Zeppelin riffs could bring back the feeling of the four musicians locking together, almost like opening a door into another time. His later work explored different moods and textures, while the enormous legacy of Zeppelin continued hanging over everything he created. Some fans wanted the same wild energy they remembered from Zeppelin's glory days, but Page was no longer living in that same world. Time had moved forward, circumstances had changed, and Bonham's absence was permanent. The memories remained inside songs, recordings, performances, and every crushing drum break preserved on those albums. Bonham's presence didn't need to become some frightening ghost story. It was something far more human, a reminder of a friendship, a musical partnership, and a once-in-a-lifetime chemistry that couldn't simply be manufactured again. Every familiar riff carried a piece of that history, while Page faced the challenge of making music after the band that had defined an era was suddenly gone. Over the years, the offers kept coming. Promoters dangled enormous paydays, fans pushed hard for reunion tours, and talented drummers were ready to step in and honor John Bonham's legacy. For Jimmy Page, the idea had an obvious pull. Bringing Led Zeppelin back would mean returning to some of the biggest moments of his life. The roaring crowds, the crushing riffs, and that electric connection with millions of fans. But there was a catch nobody could ignore. Going back also meant confronting the empty space Bonham had left behind. Page faced a difficult conflict. Celebrating Zeppelin's music made sense, but acting as though Bonham could simply be replaced didn't. That tension stayed around for decades as reunion rumors kept exploding. Then, in 2007, something extraordinary happened. Led Zeppelin reunited for a special performance with Bonham's son, Jason Bonham, behind the drums. This wasn't just some random drummer trying to copy his father's style. Jason carried a personal connection to the music and its history, giving the performance a completely different emotional weight. For that night, the music came alive again. Page, Plant, Jones, and Jason delivered the songs with enormous force, while Bonham's legacy remained at the heart of the performance. But the concert wasn't automatically the beginning of a permanent comeback. It stood as a special moment on its own, and a full-scale Led Zeppelin revival never followed. As the years passed, Page appeared increasingly focused on protecting what Led Zeppelin had already created, rather than forcing the past to repeat itself. Some musical stories stay powerful precisely because they belong to a particular group of people at a particular moment. Bonham's absence could never be erased, and honoring that history meant accepting what had changed. Grief doesn't always disappear, it can simply change shape. For Page, looking back also meant confronting painful questions. Could the band's relentless pace have been slowed? Could there have been more rest? Could anyone around Bonham have understood how serious his struggles had become? There are no simple answers to questions like those, and it would be unfair to claim Page could have known exactly what would happen. But losing someone close can leave behind endless what-ifs. Publicly, millions mourned the drummer who powered Led Zeppelin. Privately, Page had lost a friend and musical partner whose absence could never be filled in quite the same way. Page hasn't always gone into great detail about Bonham in interviews, but when he has spoken about him, the respect is impossible to miss. His words often point back to the same idea. Bonham was irreplaceable, not simply because of his technical ability behind the drums, but because of the instinct, power, and personality he brought to every Led Zeppelin song. Bonham attacked the drums with the same kind of raw instinct Page brought to the guitar. The two could react to each other almost instantly, creating a musical language built over years of rehearsals, recording sessions, and massive performances. After Bonham was gone, that exact chemistry disappeared with him. As Page grew older, his perspective naturally changed. Instead of pretending everything in the past could have been controlled, there was room to recognize just how intense that era had been. Fame, relentless schedules, pressure, and excess surrounded many major rock bands at the time. Accepting the past couldn't change what happened, but it could change how those memories were carried. And Bonham's story certainly didn't end in 1980. His drumming went on to influence generations of musicians who studied his enormous sound, unusual groove, speed, and feel. Every drummer inspired by those records became another reminder that his impact had spread far beyond Led Zeppelin. For Page, carrying Led Zeppelin's legacy became both an incredible privilege and a serious responsibility. Every award, tribute, interview, and celebration inevitably brought the band's history and Bonham's role in it back into the spotlight. Zeppelin's greatness couldn't be separated from the drummer who helped create that unmistakable sound. That helps explain why protecting the band's legacy mattered so much. A careless reunion or weak imitation could never recreate what those four musicians originally had. Led Zeppelin was Page, Plant, Jones, and Bonham. Four completely different personalities colliding at exactly the right moment and creating a sound that became almost impossible to duplicate. Younger musicians have often looked to Jimmy Page for guidance, and his message has centered on discipline, passion, and respecting the music. But Led Zeppelin's story carries another lesson too. Success can feel very different when the people who helped create it are no longer beside you. As the years passed, Page increasingly became a guardian of Zeppelin's history. He worked closely on remasters, archival releases, and other projects designed to preserve the band's music with care. This wasn't simply about looking backward. It was about making sure new generations could hear the detail, power, and chemistry that made those original recordings so special. And the second John Bonham's drums explode through an old Zeppelin track, his presence is impossible to ignore. Listen to songs like When the Levee Breaks or Kashmir. The drums aren't sitting quietly in the background. They're driving the entire experience. That enormous sound, timing, and groove were captured decades ago. Yet they can still hit listeners with unbelievable force today. That's the crazy part about great music. It can outlive the moment that created it. Every year, younger fans discover Led Zeppelin for the first time and hear that same raw energy previous generations heard. Bonham may be gone, but his performances remain locked into those recordings, speaking through every kick, crash, and thunderous beat. As Page grew older, his public reflections on Zeppelin also gained the perspective that comes with time. The band's original run was intense, groundbreaking, and ultimately impossible to continue in the same form after Bonham's death. Page, Plant, and Jones made the decision not to replace him permanently, preserving Led Zeppelin as the creation of those four musicians. And maybe that's why their story still carries so much weight. Led Zeppelin didn't simply fade away because audiences stopped caring or because the music stopped selling. Their original journey ended after the loss of someone they believed was essential to the band's identity. Decades later, the records are still blasting from speakers, new fans are still discovering the band, and Bonham's drums still sound absolutely massive. Led Zeppelin ended, but the music never disappeared, and every time those legendary drums come crashing in, another listener gets to discover exactly why John Bonham could never simply be replaced. But what do you think? Was ending Led Zeppelin after Bonham's death the right decision? Or would you have wanted Page, Plant, and Jones to continue with another drummer? Drop your opinion in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and I'll see you in the next video.